Hi everybody, afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on Monitor Your School Attendance, and thank you very much for joining us today. This is the first of this series of webinars since the start of the academic year, so thank you for being here with us today. And for those of you who haven't joined us before, we run these webinars every couple of months to provide updates on daily school attendance data and the Monitor Your School Attendance tools. This webinar is recorded and it will be uploaded on the attendance playlist on the DfE Sector Comms YouTube channel, and you'll receive a link to that on the email that you signed up to this webinar with. Please post any questions that you have throughout the webinar in the chat, in the Q&A. We will try to reply to as many as possible. We won't be able to get to all of them, but we will send an FAQ document after the call, which will include questions that we are not able to answer during today's webinar. We will also be sharing some useful links in the Q&A as we move throughout the presentations, as you won't be able to click on the links in the actual presentation itself. We plan to run for up to 45 minutes today, and we have lots of updates for you. But without further ado, I will hand over to Simon Blake, who is the Deputy Director for School Attendance, and he's going to more formally welcome you to the webinar today. So over to you, Simon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. For those who haven't met, I'm Simon Blake. I lead the attendance division at DfE, and it is lovely to virtually meet all of you and also to see such a great turnout. I'm just going to say a few words of welcome and try and set the context. Where am I looking? I'm looking in the wrong place, aren't I? Let me look into my camera, then you guys can see me. Right. The first thing I wanted to say is that improving school attendance remains a really top priority for the new government. And I guess that reflects that the scale of the challenge post-COVID remains, really very substantial. Last year, if you look at the data, overall absence using the daily data was just over 7%. Persistent absence, missing a day or fortnight or more, was 20.7%. They're both improvements year on year, so that's helpful, but there are still really large gaps back to where we were pre-COVID. And we've had the first published data for September and this academic year. And the good news is it shows some improvement, particularly in secondary, which is encouraging because I guess where children start the year really sets the tone and the habits for the months to come. But the challenge is sustaining that, and there's still a lot to do. In sustaining that, I guess a sort of key point to make is we're not alone. The government is taking a new approach through the missions kind of framework that you will have heard about and read about, I hope. That's really about trying to join up both horizontally across government more effectively and also sort of vertically. So the relationship between national government, local government, trusts and schools, and also civil society more widely. And we're really pleased that attendance is featuring and is highly relevant to at least two of the missions. So there's the opportunity mission, which is about life chances and breaking the link between where you start in life and where you end up, and also the Safer Streets mission, which is about crime, safeguarding, safety, those sorts of issues. There's a whole bunch of early delivery stuff linked into the missions, and much of it has the potential to help tackle some of the drivers of absence, things that we've really wrestled with for a long time. So things like commitments on access to mental health professionals in every school, commitments to introduce free breakfast clubs in primary, and things like even the curriculum review. That could all really help with some of the drivers of the absence challenge. And all that comes, I guess, against the backdrop of a couple of important changes that took effect at the start of this year, including the working together guidance becoming statutory. So my team looks after that bit of guidance, and we were thrilled that we were able to make it statutory and give it the extra force that does, including the new codes and the enforcement regime that's within it. But also relevant to today, participation in the daily data tool became mandatory. And I guess we're excited about those things because they're a means to an end, really. They're a means to building an operating model for all of us that is built on a support-first ethos. So supporting families to overcome some of the barriers and delivering that through working together in a partnership way where attendance is everyone's business, and taking a data-led approach as well. So trying to intervene early to spot attendance problems and address them before they escalate. That's the philosophy. So schools and local authorities have been doing a great job in taking on the requirements of the guidance and working with the data. And I just wanted to say to all of you a huge thank you. The hard work in the years up till now and in this year, it's, attendance can be a really grueling business. It requires really sustained focus, and there's a lot of challenge in it in a lot of ways. So we're just hugely grateful to all of you for the work that you're doing. On the data, I think we're at 96 or 97% of schools sharing their data now, which is fantastic. And I guess the aim of today and the underlying purpose of that is to get to shared real-time information. And in a way, that gives us all a special power, namely an ability to disentangle everything that's going on in the raw attendance problem that we see and get beneath the surface and try and break that huge challenge down into more manageable pieces. So we think the position we're getting to now with the daily data tool, while there's more to do, it puts us in really strong position. Certainly, if you look internationally, England's got some of the best data capability in the world, and the team is really looking forward to sharing with you all the new features that we're introducing and showing you the functionality of it in a way that I hope really works for you and is really helpful to you in the challenging day jobs that you're all doing. So I'm going to hand over, I think, to Caroline now to take us through some of that. But just let me underline again, my enormous thanks to all of you for all that you're doing.
Thank you very much, Simon. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Caroline Kempner, and I lead on the data side of this project. So I'm just going to tell you what we're going to cover in the rest of the webinar today. I'm going to briefly go through an introduction to the Daily Data project for those of you who are less familiar with it. Then I'm going to hand over to one of our statisticians who's going to talk about the latest attendance statistics. And then we're going to have what I think is really the heart of this webinar, where we're going to walk through a feature that we released last year, which is looking at attendance through the lens of 5% absence bandings and how that can really help you do what Simon just said, which is break down that sort of problem into manageable chunks. Then we'll have a quick look at use of the new attendance codes that were introduced from August. Then we're going to show you some new features that we introduced in September, and then we'll finish on some key messages. Next slide, please. So we can pop over to the next slide as well, please. So just to recap sort of why we're doing this. So if we just look at the sort of aim of this, is we really want to make sure that everybody across the system has access to the same information that is trusted on attendance, so that you can take action. We want to make sure that everybody has a reliable and an easy to use suite of products, and that we can provide, where it's appropriate, we can provide information to allow you to compare how you're doing with others. And we continue to develop and iterate our products based on the feedback that you give us and address any issues that there are, and we will continue to do that. Next slide, please. So as you may know, we have three types of products that we have developed that we draw from the data that you share with us. We have a secure set of dashboards on the Viewy Education Data platform, that those are available for schools, trusts and local authorities. Also on the same platform, we have a couple of products that are only available for schools, and that is benchmarking and also the bandings reports that we're going to talk about in a moment. And then we have the fortnightly published statistics, which are available to everybody to see. Next slide, please. So as Simon mentioned, from August, it became a statutory requirement for schools to share attendance data with DFE in the way that most of you are doing. We thought it would be helpful to just recap on who this applies to and who it doesn't apply to. So we've listed here who it applies to, and that is schools maintained by an LA, special schools not maintained by a local authority, academy schools, and alternative provision academies. If you're not sure if this applies to you, if you look on the Get Information About Schools sort of school type, that will identify the school type that you are listed in. So it doesn't apply to you if you are a nursery school, a 16 to 19 only academy, a sixth form college, or an independent school that is not an academy, which includes independent special schools. Next slide, please. If you're not yet sharing data, you are at risk of being in breach of this duty now. It's really, really easy for you to share data with us, and it is free. We are partnered through a company called Wand, who most of you will be familiar with. If you have already a relationship with Wand, you can go into your Wand portal, select DFE, and then you can review our request to share data and accept that request. If you don't have a relationship with Wand or you can't see the request, just contact support@wand.com. Really importantly, as we always say when we have these webinars, we take data protection very seriously, and we have published our data protection impact assessment, a data privacy notice, and details of how the data that you share with us is being used. We do often get questions from schools where they want to check if they are sharing data. If you're from a local authority or trust, you need to ask the school if they're sharing data. If you're from a school, you can check with Wand or log into your Wand portal to check whether you're sharing data. You can also read the guidance that we publish on gov.uk. If you're still not sure if you're sharing data or not, please feel free to email us using that email address there, dailyattendance.data@education.gov.uk. I'd like to hand over now to Tia May, who's going to talk us through the latest statistics.
Real. Thank you, Caroline. And hi, everyone. My name is Tia, and I'm an analyst in the department. I work on the production of the National Pupil Attendance Statistics publication, which uses the daily data. So I'm going to run you through some of the stats from our publications. So you may have seen the publication before, but it has two components. The first is the Explore Education Statistic page, which hosts the publication. And we also have an interactive attendance dashboard that is associated with it too. You can view attendance data daily, weekly, or by year to date and look at individual terms. Schools can also benchmark themselves against the national attendance figures or regions or local authorities of interest. So in August, we published statistics that cover the entire 2023 to 24 academic year. This gives a picture of attendance across the whole year using the daily data. And as you can see on the slide, overall absence for the 2023 to 24 academic year across all school types was 7.2. This is a decline on the previous academic year in 2022 to 23, where overall absence was 7.5%. However, progress is slow and the statistics still remain a way off pre-pandemic levels. Progress is also slower in vulnerable pupil cohorts. Can I have the next slide, please? Thanks. So we released the first publication of the 2024-25 academic year on the 26th of September, so last week. And from now, publications will roughly follow a fortnightly schedule. The next one will be next week on the 10th of October. And then at the end of the autumn term, persistent absence statistics and breakdowns of absence by key pupil characteristics will be included. So this will be early 2025. Then characteristics will continue to be published on a termly basis. So in the first week that schools were all expected to be back, which is the week commencing 9th of September, which was covered in our most recent publication. National absence was at 4.8%. This was 0.2 percentage points lower than the previous academic year, so an improvement, as Simon mentioned earlier. We have also completed some analysis from the previous academic year, which looks at absence in the first week of term. So you can see at the bottom of the slide, this analysis found that of pupils who had at least 1 day of absence in the first week of term in the 2023 to 24 academic year, 58.4% of these went on to be persistently absent. This finding highlights that this right now is the point of the year where you'll want to understand which pupils were absent early on in the school year and put in place early interventions to minimise their likelihood of becoming persistently absent. So that's me. I think I am handing over to Jamie now. Thanks.
Afternoon, everyone. Great to see so many of you on the call. My name's Jamie Balgin. I'm one of the policy advisors in the DFE school attendance team. I wanted to spend the sort of next 10 minutes or so to walk you through how banding absence data can really help us understand the shape and distribution of absence in your setting. We're spending time on this today because I think, our attendance hubs and advisors have told us that looking at the data in this way helps us to spot those relevant and actionable insights across trends and groups of pupils that they wouldn't have otherwise identified through existing analysis. So I'm hoping broadly today to talk through 3 things. The first, I'll take you through what banding last year's absence data at a national level can tell us about the problems we're trying to address. Then I'll talk to you about how you can access your own banded data through the Monitor Your School Attendance service. And then finally, we'll work through some real life examples of schools' data to understand how looking at data in this way can help you understand and address the absence problem. So the graph in front of you shows last year's absence data, and you can see across the horizontal axis that we have a series of 5 percentage bands of absence, and across the vertical axis, we have the number of children in each absence band in the national curriculum year groups 1 to 11. And there's a couple of things I wanted to draw out of this graph, and the first is just to reiterate the thanks that Simon gave earlier on the call to you and all your colleagues, because we're making some really significant gains. So last year we had 400,000 more pupils in school almost every day compared to the year before. But as Simon and Tia both said, I think the graph is also telling us that there's still a way to go. And I just wanted to draw out sort of 2 key insights here. The first is that we have a large number of pupils who are still missing too much school. And if I can draw your attention to the sort of red box on the left-hand side of the graph, we can see the 5 to 15% absence band, which shows that the majority of absence in England is lower level, but that there are 2.8 million pupils missing between 5 and 15% of school. I think the second insight I take from this is on the more severe end. So if we look at the 50 to 100% absence band, where the red box on the right is, we can see that there are 150,000 pupils missing more than half of school. And this is a smaller group of pupils, but as you know, will represent a more complex set of circumstances and challenges. If we could have the next slide, please. So I wanted to next show you how you can access a sort of similar level of analysis using your own school's data via the Viewy Your School Attendance data service. The absence banding report that you can see on screen now is a really helpful way to target your resources and interventions where they're likely to have the greatest impact. So once you log in, you'll see the bandings report on your Insights dashboard, which is labelled number 1 on the diagram, and then label 2 shows your bands of 5% absence up to 50% absence plus. Then labels 3 and 4 show the total number and total percentage of pupils in each band. And then finally, label 5 shows you whether pupils in this band are persistently or severely absent. I'd also just draw your attention to the right-hand side of the image, and you'll see that you're able to apply filters to view pupil characteristics. So, for example, year group, preschool meals, sex, SEN, and others. And when you log into this page, you'll always see your sort of year-to-date figures and know that that data has been updated each day. If we move to the next slide, please, Amanda. Thank you. So once you're on the page, you're able to click on each absence band to see the names and year group of each pupil that makes up each particular band. And once again, you can use filters on the right-hand side of the screen to really drill down further to understand which cohorts of pupils are sort of over or perhaps underrepresented in each absence band. And it's by looking at the data in this way that we can really start to move beyond the sort of headline overall persistent and severe absence figures, and instead start to analyse the whole spectrum of absence. We could just move on. So what I wanted to do now was to sort of take you through a couple of examples to show you how using data in this way can help you get that much more granular understanding of absence in your setting. So on this slide, we've got data for School A and School B, who are two real life secondary schools that neighbour each other and are of a similar size. What you'll see is that both schools appear to have that sort of year-to-date overall absence at around 8% and persistent absence at around 23%. So on paper looks quite similar. But when we look at their data in this banded way, we can see how different their absence distribution is, especially when we're looking at those key groups of pupils missing between 5 and 15% and those missing more than 50% of school. So when we look at these two schools side by side in a banded way, we can see that there are fewer children in School A than School B attending almost every day. We can see a higher proportion of pupils in School A missing between 5 and 15% of school, and that there are more than double the number of severely absent pupils in School B. So I think what this demonstrates is by looking beyond those headline data headlines and being able to understand the distribution of your absence profile, you can tailor your response. So in this example, School B would need a much greater focus on severe absence when compared to School A. If we take the next slide, please. So now we'll take a look at how you can go a bit further with the banding tool to understand trends between year groups. So we're sticking with School A for now, and this slide shows their data for Year 7, Year 8 and Year 9. And what it's telling us in this report is that as pupils move through Key Stage 3, there are fewer pupils attending almost every day, an increase in the number of pupils absent between 10 and 15% of the time, and a significant rise in severe absence from 0.5% in Year 7 to 2.7% in Year 9. Now, this suggests that in this particular school, leaders would really want to start targeting their efforts towards identifying and addressing that early decline in absences in Key Stage 3 and identifying the pupils that are at risk of becoming persistently or severely absent further down the national key stage. We just move on to the next slide. Thank you. So once you've identified how your absent trends are shifting across different bands and different year groups, this is when you can really start to drill down into the data by applying those additional filters to look at other cohorts. And what this is going to be able to help you do is generate those insights and identify which cohorts are not attending school regularly. So in this example, again, we've taken School A's data and applied filters to compare the attendance outcomes of boys and girls in Year 9 who are in seat of free school meals. This tells us a couple of things. So there's a higher proportion of girls than boys that are attending nearly every day, and the proportion of those in the 5 to 15% bands are similar. But it also tells us that both severely absent pupils in this cohort are girls and none of the boys are. So what we've done here is apply these filters to the absence banding report to identify a small and targetable group of pupils. So we can now start to understand what the barriers to attendance are and whether they're at school level or require a wider agency response. And once you've identified this targetable group of pupils, you might want to ask yourself those softer questions like, is there a point in the year where absence starts to decline? is there anything that these pupils potentially have in common? So we've had one school do this exercise and identify that all the pupils in the cohort with poor attendance didn't have that school as their first admission preference in year 6 and 7. Are there any particular days of the week that this group is more likely to be absent, and what can be done to address that? And I think it's by looking at this banding tool regularly and making it part of your sort of day-to-day scrutiny of the data that can help you identify when children or groups of children are moving up and down those absence bands. So you can use this to monitor the impact of the great work that your school's doing and celebrate where there's been improvements, but also to inform decisions on where and when to put in place further support or action that might be needed. So that was all I wanted to say on bandings. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand now over to Adam.
Thank you very much, everybody. My name's Adam Luke, and I head up the School Attendance Policy and Strategy team at DFE. And it's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon to briefly cover, and I mean briefly, there is a full webinar that you can watch on the YouTube channel that goes through things in more detail, but to briefly cover the new attendance and absence codes that were introduced at the beginning of the school year. For those of you who are new or relatively new to the attendance world this school year, and a refresher for everybody else, a school's attendance and admission register are both legal documents, and they must be kept in accordance with a set of regulations, and those regulations were replaced this summer, which include a new and revised set of codes, and that follows a long period of public consultation, and the idea behind them is to improve the consistency and accuracy of recording across different schools in the country. The use of the new set of attendance and absence codes is now a legal requirement for all types of schools. And as with any other breach of the regulations that govern the registers, misuse of one of the codes is a criminal offence. For those of you who have worked with the previous code set, the changes are minimal and they're briefly covered here on the slide, but they I'll run through them quickly just so that people are aware. The first is breaking down the previous code C that covered authorised leave of absence, breaking that down into 3 separate codes. So retaining code C as the first of those to cover leave of absence where it's granted by a school in exceptional circumstances. The second is C1 to cover leaves of absence where a pupil is participating in a regulated performance or undertaking regulated employment abroad, so where a BOPA or an employment or entertainment licence has been issued for that child. And the third is C2 to cover leaves of absence for compulsory school age pupils where they're subject to a part-time timetable. Pupils of non-compulsory school age, so above and below compulsory school age that have part-time timetables, are still continue to be recorded with Code X for the sessions that they're not required to be in school. The second change is breaking down the old Y code to cover the common exceptional circumstance and unavoidable cause scenarios that are set out as statutory defences against prosecution in the primary legislation around attendance. And they are all set out in detail in the Working Together to Improve School Attendance Guidance in Chapter 8. I won't run through them all here, but they're codes Y1 to Y7 and Code Q, and all of those together replace the old Y code. The old Code J for interviews has been retired and replaced with Code J1. That still covers interviews, but is now statistically counted as an authorised absence, and that reflects in the new legislation that a leave of absence has been granted for the purpose of attending an interview, and that, of course, can be either for employment or admission to another educational institution. The old Code H for authorised holiday has also been retired as the updated guidance makes clear that the department doesn't generally view a holiday or other period of recreation or leisure as an exceptional circumstance. If in an individual case that a school decides to grant a leave of absence because they believe that there is an exceptional circumstance to do so in that case, then that can be recorded with Code C like any other exceptional circumstance going forward. All other codes remain the same, except for a change in the definition of Code B, where a pupil is attending a place for an approved educational activity that isn't a sporting activity or isn't work experience that have their own codes. The crucial change to the definition is around supervision, and the judgment that you're thinking through as a school there is whether the activity is supervised by a person considered by the school to have the appropriate skills, training, experience and knowledge to ensure that that activity takes place safely and fulfills the educational purpose for which the pupil's attendance has been approved. And that's set out in Regulation 10 of the new regulations. In that regulation, the supervision means that the pupil is physically supervised by someone who meets that definition, so it can't be used for virtual or remote education provision, but that doesn't mean that schools can't continue to provide virtual learning where it's in the pupil's best interest, but it must be recorded with the correct absence code. As it would be impossible for schools to make a judgment on whether that definition is met for provision that's been arranged by the local authority, Code K has been introduced alongside Code B. It covers similar types of provision where it is arranged by the local authority and you as a school can't make the judgment for that definition. That's a quick run through of the main changes. As I mentioned, the full details are all set out in Chapter 8 of the Working Together guidance, and on the DFE YouTube channel there is a session where I run through each code in turn and talk through what the definitions and legal requirements of each of those are. Thank you from me and from the department to everyone who's already moved to using the revised code set. The vast majority of schools have made that transition from the beginning of the school year. There's a very small number of schools still returning some data for retired codes, and that's possibly because the new code set isn't shown in your MIS system yet. If that's the case, first try and update the system to the latest version, and if you can't, if you've done that or you're struggling to see them for any other reason, the best port of call is to first contact your MIS supplier and get some help with that. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Adam. So now what we want to do is just talk you through a couple of new features that we've introduced in September. So if we would go on to the next slide, please. So the first is the ability to show visually a year-on-year comparison of pupil attendance or absence. So if you look at the chart, you can access this through the Insights dashboard. On the left-hand side, there's a new feature you can click on called Year-to-Date Comparison. And then what we're showing here is this is actually for last year and the year before. So this is showing what it will look like for sort of a full year's data, if you like. So this has got autumn, spring and summer term for last year compared to the previous year. So if you go and have a look at this now for your school, obviously there isn't a lot of data to show yet for this year, but this will build up over time and it will give you an easy way to look at either attendance or absence or unauthorised absence and look at how it's moving over time. And you can select which term you look at or whether you look at the whole of the year to date. And as with most other features, you can also select particular cohorts by clicking on the filters on the right if you want to drill down. So this is something that many schools have asked for, so we're really delighted, and we think this will be an easy way for you to see trends over time. Next slide, please. The second new feature is an easy way for you to get a list of pupils who have 10 days of continuous unauthorised absence. The reason we've done this is that it's set out in the guidance. It's one of the returns that you need to make to your local authority. So where pupils have 10 days of or more of continuous unauthorised absence, you need to provide that list to the local authority. So we have done that sort of calculation for you, and that's calculated around sessions, so 20 continuous sessions, and it provides you with that list, and that will be updated, and that's just a really easy thing for you to find. And again, that's under the Insights dashboard, and it's a new item that you can click on at the bottom of the list under the Insights dashboard. So that's the end of the main things we wanted to tell you about today. I'm just now going to ask for what I always ask for on the next slide, which is your feedback. So the way we're able to improve this and make it more useful to you is by you giving us feedback. We're always happy to hear from you, whether that's through formal user research or other means. Sometimes we meet people at conferences. There's lots of sort of stakeholder engagement across different parts of the team, and we take all your feedback and then we add it to a long list of things that people would like to see, and then we implement it where we can. In particular today, I wanted to ask if you're interested in taking part in user research. There will be a link in the chat. Please do sign up for that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we have what we call critical partner groups, where every couple of months or so we bring together schools and trusts, and then we have a separate group for local authorities, where we're able to have sort of group discussions about new features that we might be planning to introduce and asking for feedback on how you're using the tools. So if you think that might be of interest to you, please do email us through that dailyattendance.data@education.gov.uk, and we'll be very happy to consider you to come onto our critical partners group. Next slide, please. We have a sort of live service running now, and so we have the ability for you to raise tickets with us that we then have a team looking at. We've always kept a list of what we call known issues, and at the bottom of this slide and going into the chat, there is a link where you can check for known issues. So if there is an issue on that list that we know about, although some of them take quite a while to resolve, we are on the case and we are trying to resolve them. If you have an issue which is new or particularly pertinent just to you, not to a wider group, then you need to log that issue in the way that's set out here. So you need to get to the customer help portal, so you can log in through DFE sign-in or with your customer help portal account. And then you need to select Get Help with DFE Systems and then select Attendance Reporting /WAND. And then you can report your issue, and then we will assess it and we will get back to you. Next slide, please. So finally, we just wanted to finish with 3 key messages for you today. Firstly, to have a look at the absence bandings tool for your school that Jamie talked us through, to really have a look at the shape and distribution of absence in your settings. And we think, and the feedback we've had is that could really help you inform your response to how you're trying to improve attendance. The second is that message about please do give us feedback, either through signing up for user research or becoming part of our critical partners group. And thirdly, if you're in the small number of schools who are not already sharing your daily attendance data, please do so through your One portal or through contacting One directly by emailing them at support@one.com. Thank you so much for your time today. I know we've answered some of the questions in the chat, and as Laura said, those that we can't get to, we'll either answer individually or we'll send around information when we send the recording for the webinar. Thank you so much for your time today, and have a good rest of the day.